The person's not someone with dementia, first and foremost. They're still the person you know and love and have always known and loved. So remember who they are and who they've always been. You've just got to maybe adapt a little bit how you work with them to take into account the diagnosis they have, but it shouldn't change who they are and it shouldn't change how you react to them.
I guess like many other people, I used to be a bit impatient and like things done when they should be and in the right way. And now I think, well, no, it doesn't matter. It just teaches you to look at life differently, really. And when people complain about what I would say are petty things, it makes you realise that there are lots more important things to worry about.
If you're living with someone with dementia who's asking a similar question over and over again, a lot of carers say that that can be very frustrating and they can feel quite sort of angry and not know quite how to deal with that. But the general advice is to be patient, to take your time, to think of another way of phrasing a question or something, or perhaps just sort of leaving something and returning it to it another time.
And also, if they seem to be getting confused, then just stopping. But actually spending time listening to what they're saying, because actually, in their world, they may have just responded to the question you asked 5 questions ago. So they're having a very appropriate conversation. But because in your world you've moved on, it seems confusing. So it's just about being more alert and listening more effectively, because then you can say, oh yeah, I mentioned that, didn't I, 5 minutes ago, about the dog, about your dog being poorly. Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. So, so what's happening? Even though perhaps the last question you asked was, how are they managing with the new stair lift that's been put in? So it's being attentive to their cues and trying to cue in at their level.
There are some common advice and guidance for speaking to somebody with dementia. Keeping words and phrases simple. If someone's suggesting that they don't understand, perhaps looking a little bit confused, perhaps repeating, speaking very clearly so that the person can sort of understand. And it can be challenging, it can be difficult if somebody is having difficulty following a conversation. But the general advice is simply to keep words and keep word and phrases simple, and also to be patient.
I mean, if you were out walking, say you were out shopping with your 80-year-old mother and she started to slow down, you wouldn't continue walking at your speed, would you? You'd stop back and walk at her speed so you could walk round together. It's a similar thing. You're just dropping back to their pace to keep up with them at their level.
If you're approaching a problem, whether it's showering, because showering was a particular issue, but meal times maybe, or anything where she decided she wouldn't cooperate, the best way is walk away. Just leave it. Don't press for the thing to go ahead. Just walk away, and then try 10 minutes later, and you might have some success. You might not. Try 10 minutes later, but you just have to have patience, really.
Be patient with the person with dementia and be as simple as possible in explaining tasks, explaining what's happening during the course of the day. And routine can also be quite beneficial for helping someone care for someone with dementia. But dementia is very, very different to every individual, as is the caring experience. So there isn't one size fits all.
Never argue. That was a lesson I learned very early on. The people with dementia really do believe that what they're saying is absolutely true. So if they said it's Tuesday and you said, no, it's Wednesday, it's not worth arguing the toss anyway. It's what is the point of trying to make somebody feel that they haven't got the dignity to know which day it is.
As the illness progresses, the degree of cognitive impairment and the recognition, the orientation declines, and it can be very distressing.
Sadly, she has virtually no conversation. She doesn't really recognise me. We get a glimmer of interest sometimes when we walk in the room.
There was one night particularly that I kissed him goodnight, and we were having separate bedrooms, and he said, "Good night, whoever you are." And that was the most earth-shattering thing. That was really when I realised that, to some degree, that he was living in his world and I was living in mine.
They might not recognise the family, and this is very, very distressing, as you can imagine, for family members, when suddenly somebody might turn around and say, "Who are you?" And what I would say to families in that situation is, it's unlikely that the person doesn't know you, or has forgotten you completely. That might be a time where they've gone back in the mind to a safer place, or to a time from the past when perhaps the children weren't born yet. Or perhaps a time in the mind where, if they've been married 50 years, they've just got married. So the wife looks quite different now than she did then. And if you're in that place in your mind 50 years ago, then you're looking for your wife as she looked 50 years ago. So that can be quite frightening for people. They can forget who family are. And what I would say is, just join people in that reality. Don't argue and say, "I'm your wife," because it was not going to work. So talk to people about that time in their life and try it. That will help to reassure them and make them feel comfortable, and then they'll come back to reality.
It's difficult, but I still look forward to going, and I still like to go and see her. And if she raises one eyelid and acknowledges that she's recognising me in some way, then that's a benefit as well. And I try and get her to repeat words. She'll only repeat single words these days, so I might say, "Are you hungry?" And I stress the hungry, and she'll think a moment and she might repeat that word, but it's only ever a single word. The last 3 words she ever said to me were, "I love you." So I'm grateful of that.
What's important to realise is that the patient, though, is still able to experience emotions and would still be able to be comforted and be able to be loved and to be able to be happy in that state. And therefore, one must always try and remember the person that was there and very much look after them in a very compassionate way.